Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. A 10-year-old beat 'em up and my entire legacy. When you look up Amiiben, you get Scott Pilgrim. I'm sure all of you know this though. My little tutorial I made last year blew up, and chances are that's how you found out about the channel. If you had trouble at first and had to watch the update video, you'd also know that I didn't expect the video to blow up. Just made it so I could show Anamanaguchi at their concert. But what I haven't talked about is my history with the game. So before we get into the review, here's a little anecdote pretty much explaining how I got here. You can skip to this timestamp if you want to get right to the review. Holiday 2011. 5-year-old me receives a 3DS. I had a blast with this thing. While the Wii may have been my first console, the 3DS introduced me to the vast world of gaming. While I played a lot of the standard titles like Mario 3D Land, Pilot Wings, and Tetris Axis, as presents I would receive Nintendo eShop cards. The 3DS eShop was magical, and as a very young kid, I would just pick whatever game looked cool that I could afford with my card. One of these games was Bit Trip Saga. Bit Trip, for those who don't know, is a series of 6 Atari-inspired indie games. My favorite of the 6 was Runner. Bit Trip Runner is a fast-paced, rhythm-based platformer game. And what's a rhythm game without good music? Bad. Well, this game does have good music, and my favorite song in the game was Blackout City, done by none other than Anamanaguchi. One day I looked up Anamanaguchi on my iPod Touch and found they had a bunch of albums. Later, I convinced my parents to buy their brand new album, Endless Fantasy. I listened to this religiously. To this day, Endless Fantasy is still my favorite album. If you haven't yet, I strongly recommend you dedicate some of your time to giving this one a listen. That holiday of 2013, I was given an Xbox 360. The Xbox One just came out, but I wanted a 360 because, as some of you might know, the launch Xbox One was bad. Real bad. This console was panned across the board, and even though Xbox works with television, nobody liked Microsoft's VCR. Because the eShop was so good, I had to browse the Xbox store. So instead of playing games one day after school, I did just that, and something stuck out at me. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. I remembered this picture from Anamanaguchi on iTunes, and promptly downloaded the demo. And it was awesome. I had never played a beat 'em up before, and this game was just so unique. And man, that soundtrack did not disappoint. I loved playing this game with my friends. It was something we could all play at once, and even though it was a demo, I squeezed a ton of hours out of just level 1. It took a lot of convincing of my parents to buy a first grade or a T-rated game, but after months of complaining, the game was finally mine. This game soon became my favorite to play. Every day my sister and I would play this game and discover new things in each level we beat, though good things would soon come to an end. While I definitely played this game past December 30th, 2013 without any knowledge of the game being delisted, it was delisted from my home. So in 2016, when the Xbox One S launched, if you bought the new Surface Pro and some accessories, you get a free launch Xbox One and some games. My great aunt bought a Surface Pro that week and came to my house with a brand new Xbox One. Needless to say, I was ecstatic. But my dad wasn't. Even though the console was completely free, I had to get rid of my 360 to keep the Xbox One, or else he would sell it. So I did. I soon found out that I would never be able to play Scott Pilgrim again, and that only made it sting more. And like the rest of the Scott Pilgrim video game fans, I was sad. By 2017, I had received a laptop that ran Windows, and in my subsequent emulation phase, I wondered, can you emulate Scott Pilgrim vs. the World on PC? Yes, you can. Poorly, but it worked. The sound was really bad, I couldn't get 2 players or controllers to work, and it was probably like 15 frames a second. 2019 rolls around, and my computer breaks down. When I get it repaired, I lose everything. Later that year, when Anamanaguchi announced their tour, I wanted to play Scott Pilgrim on my PC again. Problem is, I had to reset up RPCS3 again. Luckily, the preservationist in me had the game on a flash drive I kept. Then I realized something. There isn't a good tutorial on YouTube for this game. Then, in about 2 weeks or so, I created that video, and the rest is history. So that was my story with the game, but what about the game's story? Did you know that Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was created in only 5 months? Yes, you heard me right. This game was developed in only 5 months. Starting out in Ubisoft Montreal, they were tasked with creating this game, and here is their original pitch: an NES-styled beat-em-up using chiptune renditions of licensed music. The game ended up being quite a bit different from this, as you can tell. I'd say the most jarring difference is the art style. This was before the company contacted the legendary Paul Robertson through email to come and work on the project. Things were not going well. Because it's Ubisoft, conditions were not the best. The project was highly stressful, and they even had canceled the game at one point, so Montreal didn't complete the majority of the game. The project was passed down to Ubisoft Chengdu, who had never released a game before. 5 months! I admire the mindset they had in Chengdu. They were the only ones up to the challenge, and they knew they just had to get it done. Here's a great quote from Richard Sao, the managing director at Ubisoft Chengdu.
"We did the bulk of the work. The funny thing is this, to make it work I had a condition. The core team, the core creative people who thought of this game, who are driving this game have to come to Chengdu, and they did. The lead artist, the lead designer, they all came. I had 4 expats come, leading a group of about 40 Chinese staff who made this game, literally 80% of the game in 5 months. Because we didn't argue about what color blue it was. You know what it was. We just did it.
Yes, this game was rushed, and if they had the time, some things could have been ironed out. But the fact we got a good, no, great beat-em-up based on a movie is fantastic. This doesn't feel like a licensed game. The way it blends the ideas of the comic and the movie into one video game experience is just fantastic. And to be honest, I felt the movie was a bit too streamlined. While a movie adaptation of any book property is going to cut stuff out, the game not only follows the movie, it adds in little things for the people who read the comics. For example, the Katayanagi twins' robots appear on their stage despite them being changed to DJs in the movie. They worked in some extra characters and set pieces to make the game work as a standalone interpretation of the Scott Pilgrim story. Also, spoilers, I guess? In this video, I go over a lot of the things you'll find out in the game, and if you want to have a blind experience, maybe don't watch this. Don't watch any review if you want that, I suppose. Also, as a recommendation, you'll probably appreciate the game more if you've seen the movie or read the comics. Anyways, the playable characters here are Scott, Ramona, Kim, Steven, Knives, and Wallace. Starting at level 1, everyone is slow and weak. As you gain XP, you can unlock new moves and level up your stats. This kind of gives it that RPG flair. Every character has a unique moveset, and since I'm lame, my favorite character is Scott, but Kim is also pretty fun. Look at Wallace's taunt. It's perfect. They also have a bunch of alternate colors, and those are fun to pick and choose. And then we have the rest of the game. It's downright gorgeous. Paul Robertson creates infinitely detailed and colorful worlds that just ooze style and charm. There are a lot of pixel artists and pixel artworks out there, but only a few can be as distinct as Paul Robertson's. One night while watching Adult Swim, they played this bumper, and I thought to myself, that's the same guy who did the Scott Pilgrim game. I haven't experienced a moment like this with any other pixel artist, really. These worlds could have been very well traditionally drawn, but they would have lacked the character and charm that comes from using pixel art. Every time I replay a stage, I notice something new, and it makes me appreciate the setting all that more. Like an old arcade racer, there is a lot of spectacle, things to keep your eyes engaged while taking down some enemies. Ubisoft really couldn't have emailed a better artist. Paul Robertson crafted a beautiful world that is one of the many things that makes this game so distinct. However, something that isn't as distinct is the general gameplay. This is basically just a new River City Ransom game, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, the comics have a lot of references to RCR, and O'Malley stated that a big inspiration for Scott Pilgrim was taking old NES games like River City Ransom and viewing the real world through the lens of those games. While this works, more could have been added to make this a little more unique. While something like Streets of Rage 4 is a better beat-em-up experience, Scott Pilgrim works well. Very well. But it could have used a little more identity. I do like the level up system. Gaining new moves throughout the game keeps things fresh and replayable, but over time, you can become a bit too overpowered. The difficulty balance in this game just isn't the best. You can grind for a little and buy upgrades to your stats in the shopping district and breeze through the entire game. Or you can not do that and get completely bodied in single player. While I haven't experienced this game all that much in 4-player, I think the best experience is marathoning the game in 2-player mode and trying not to break the game by getting overly powerful. This is an issue that could have been fixed if the game had a little more time in development. Now, Ben, you may be asking, what do I do with these game mechanics and playable characters? To that I say you play the levels. Let's look at those levels. Frozen Suburbs. Starting in the icy streets of Toronto, Scott Pilgrim and the gang are on their way to the big show. This level is pretty straightforward. It consists of walking forward and stopping at certain areas to fight larger hordes of enemies. Jumping through this door, you can find a subspace entrance. In these little bonus sections, you can skip parts of levels and have a chance to nab some coins from the giant piggy banks. Midway through the level, you arrive at the shopping district. I always find this section pretty fun. Going around and seeing what the many shops have to offer is really entertaining. There's also the video store. If you manage to pay off a whopping $504 clearing Scott's late fees, you get some pretty incredible items that will max out your stats. Later, down in the tunnel area, if you go behind this starred door, you get to meet Wallace in his secret shop. And if you're playing as Wallace, congrats! You now get to see 2 Walleye at once. Finally, you get to the rocket and defeat Matthew Patel. Frozen Suburbs is a great first level. It succeeds at showing you what the game is all about. Level 1 is set up in a way that allows you to figure out things as you go. It's great to just replay this level when you have some friends over, And with pretty much every stage in this game, every time you play a level, you'll notice something new thanks to the incredible detail. I don't have to tell you this, but the world map is inspired by Super Mario Bros. 3. You can also start at different points of the levels after completing them. So if you want to pop back in the shopping district to buy a few things and then head out, you can do that. Alright, Casa Loma's film set. Lucas Lee skateboards by, and it's time to catch him. The waves of enemies you take down are the various actors in the movie, and there's this filter that gives you a behind-the-camera perspective. These T-Rex guys are all over the level, and are kinda annoying to fight. They always fall, and when they do this, they're invulnerable. There are also some minimal platforming segments with keys. You unlock treasure chests and walls. As you keep going forward, Lucas Lee is just kinda there. Honestly, he might be the lamest boss in this game. Unlike Patel, you just beat up Lucas, and then he'll die. There should have been like a cool transformation, or at least more attack options for him, but honestly, Lucas Lee feels like a more powerful common enemy. Level 2 is pretty alright, but falls a little short. The weakest point is the boss, but it's still a pretty fun level with a lot of new things that it brings to the table. Not as good as the first, but Casa Loma's film set is really solid. Now Leo's place, this is where the game starts picking up in difficulty. The common enemies are back from level 1, but there's more of them. A lot more. This is a really fun mechanic and gives the player a sense of progression. The same guys are back, but much easier to defeat thanks to your new abilities and stats you've gained. But that doesn't make it an easy level. Things get hectic. If someone's down, reviving them can be a real challenge unless most of the enemies are down. I've had many close saves here. This level isn't super long, Leo's place isn't that big, but oh man, the boss fight is great. You have to take down the whole band, starting with both Envy and Lynette, then the super vegan himself, Todd Ingram. Unlike last stage, Leo's Place's best aspect was the boss fight, while the main section was only just a bit lacking. Next up is Transit, by far my favorite level in the game. There's just so much going on in this one, and the music. Man, the music. This has to be my favorite track in the game. Trying to catch Roxanne has you ending up all over the place, from inside the train, to on top of it, to a hibachi grill, dojo, garden, and finally Ramona's backyard. This level just has so much variety and things to do. I mean, look at the ramen shop. Every time I go in, I'll notice something new, just like the rest of this game. Super detailed. The prevalence of swords and daggers throughout the stage is also quite fun. These are great items. Finally, it's time to fight Roxanne. Honestly, this is what Lucas Lee should have been. She is super fast and has phase changes throughout the fight. Also, there's Ramona's cat in the background, further proving my point of this level being the best. Look at him. He's a good boy. Transit is so much fun and easily this game at its peak. There are so many new ideas and environments to explore. Halloween Party is still decent. Not gonna be as good as Transit, but you can do much worse. A bunch of people chose the same costume. Kill him. One of the twins' robots appears as a mini-boss. He is pretty easy to defeat, but man, the mini-boss theme. Why did they have to make it so good? Kazana Monoguchi, that's why. And then, the bad part. The stairs. Climbing these stairs is not fun. Especially in multiplayer, where everyone is falling all over the place. So climbing can especially be a challenge. If you fall once, that will not be your last time. At the top of the building, the second boss of the level, Super Fighting Robot, attacks. The twins' robot is a refreshing part of the game. Even though it feels a little cliche, the boss is fun to dodge and fight. Finally, Dragon's Den. A lot of platforming here. People like to complain about this section, but honestly, I didn't find these obstacles to be that bad. Then the last bosses, the Katayanagi twins. They'll die instantly. The park, kind of the lamest part of the game. I just didn't find the park all that interesting. There aren't that many new ideas here, and the setting stays mostly the same throughout the whole game. The main gimmick is that there's these zombie enemies in the cemetery area, but the thing is, they just aren't that fun to fight. The zombies just feel like regular enemies, but 10 times slower. I'd say the most interesting part of this level is Mobile's secret house. Little Easter egg shop with some pretty good items. The only other thing to talk about is the boss. Nega Scott. He isn't just a mirror of Scotty P. No, he has his own moves, and it's pretty powerful. Nega Scott is a challenging boss, and the most interesting thing about this level. Other than that, I don't have much to say about this one. Finally, Chaos Theater. If you're at this point in the video and don't want the ending spoiled, you can skip to this timestamp. This is a fantastic ending to the game. If you're playing a beat 'em up and there isn't an elevator level, are you really playing a beat 'em up? Luckily, Scott Pilgrim has an elevator section, solidifying its place as a beat 'em up. After you get off the elevator, it's the first phase of Gideon. He kinda reminds me of Hagar from Final Fight, especially with this move he does. The first phase is fine, not really the most difficult, and he could pass off as just a regular early game boss. You defeat him and then get pulled in the inner subspace of Gideon. There's this little platforming segment, and at the end, phase 2. Phase 2 is hard. Really hard. Gideon is massive and powerful. His fists take up a large portion of the screen, and he can destroy the ground. Before the fight, you do get the power of love to help fight him, but I often lose it because the floor just breaks beneath me. Fun. You exit Gideon and have to chase after Gideon in the Techno Base. This is the traditional side-scrolling portion of the level. It's a kick-ass gauntlet of deadly robots. Using all the powers and moves you've gained throughout the game in this final area is satisfying. Comparing this section to the frozen suburbs gives you a sense of progression. Although this game is like 4 hours at most, it feels like a complete journey. The Techno Base is perfect. There is no flaw. In the end, there is Gideon. Again. His final phase is just plain old him with his awesome sword. To be honest, this is kinda his weakest form. He goes down the easiest in this one, especially with another person playing. You can easily overwhelm the guy and take him down like Lucas Lee. Gideon is defeated, thus ending the game. Depending on who player 1 chose is what ending you get. I'm not gonna show them all here, you can find them out for yourself, but choosing Ramona is the true ending, and you'll want to see that. If you really couldn't tell by now, I love this game. It is in my top 2 favorite games. Certain fans already know my number 1. There's just so much to love about this game, and I've played through it countless times. It is an absolute blast with friends, and a fun challenge going solo. For a Scott Pilgrim fan, it's even better. Every time I play through this game, as I said, I'll notice something new. You really can't beat the pixel art here, and the game mechanics are great. You learn to master the game and it doesn't hold your hand. Game over, back to the start. Maybe pop into the shopping district to grab a few items. While you might be able to find a better beat 'em up out there like River City Girls, this game is fantastic in what it does, and it becomes even more impressive when you put it into scale. It was a movie license game that only took 5 months to make, and the majority of the game was developed by an unknown Chinese developer who had never shipped out a game. And the fact that it's been delisted for so long has brought up its infamy, and now that it's back, we have a whole new generation of people playing and loving this masterpiece. Most people who originally played it 10 or so years ago would never think that this day would come, but it totally did, and it's fantastic. And let me tell you, no other beat 'em up even comes close in the soundtrack department. Anamanaguchi are absolute legends. There isn't a single bad song, and every track is worth a mention. The soundtrack is just bursting with ultra high energy pop punk chiptunes that are all absolutely phenomenal. Okay, here are my top 3. This music is fantastic and deserves all the recognition it can get. The best way to experience this full soundtrack is through this digital concert they performed on launch day for the Complete Edition. Give it a watch, it's incredible. There are also a few extra game modes, starting with Boss Rush. Go through all the bosses with 1 life. Boss Rush modes are always welcome in a game. Great way to test your skills. There's Survival Horror. Because 2010, there has to be a zombie mode. It's the rule. This mode is rather boring. The zombies are just not a great enemy to fight, and it only gets slightly entertaining at the 10-minute mark. Battle Royale is fun, but requires at least one other person. It's like a wrestling/fighting game mode. You fight the other players and deplete their health bar, or keep them out of the ring for 10 seconds. I like this one. It's pretty cool. The last bonus game is Dodgeball. This is inspired by Super Dodgeball, which is also part of the River City/Kunio-kun series. This one can be played just by yourself, but it's not fun that way. All these bonus modes are meant to be played with as many people as possible. Honestly, they aren't great, but again, they're bonus modes, and they didn't have to be included in the game. So, they're nice to have. To enhance the retro experience, there are some secrets and cheats added to the game. Probably the most well-known is the coin code. For some reason in the Complete Edition, they changed it to Hold B, Konami code, press A. You used to have to hold the triggers. By doing this, you'll give up a life in exchange for 50 bucks. This is a very useful code and great for leveling up a character if a friend joins midway through your playthrough. On the title screen, if you enter XXXABY, all the players will receive the power of love at the start of the level. If you enter up, up, down, down, up, 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 then the coins will turn into cute little animals. Sometimes after a battle, Mr. Chow will appear on the map. However, I couldn't get him to show up. I've been playing the Complete Edition non-stop since it came out on both my PC and Switch. And no matter how hard I tried, Mr. Chow wouldn't show. Even after an hour and a half of repeating bosses over and over and over, the man would not show up on the map. Real bummer. Well, I guess for the last part of the video, we'll take a look at the changes to the Complete Edition. Well, I'm not going to go over every little difference, as they probably haven't even been discovered yet, but here are a few. They updated the Ubisoft and Universal logos at the beginning. As I mentioned before, the coin code was altered just a bit, but those bonus modes, you used to have to put in codes at the title screen to unlock them. Now they're all here from the start. The game will match whatever resolution your monitor is, and there's this little banner at the top telling you that Scott Pilgrim is back. Wouldn't have known. Perhaps I'm playing it? Now you might be thinking, did Ubisoft just do something right? Sorry, but no. They destroyed the online mode. No joke, online games in this just straight up don't work. Fellow YouTuber Jazzbur and Discord server member is here to share his experience.
Thanks for having me on, Amiiben. The screen stopped scrolling and the game had to be restarted. Knives got soft-locked and couldn't escape from this guy who fell on top of her for a solid minute. Then the screen got stuck again and we had to quit. Yet again, the screen gets stuck for a minute. Then the buff guy falls from the stratosphere and allows us to continue. Guess what? The screen gets stuck again. Steven manages to clip through the bottom and disappear. Then the emo enemies finally appear over 5 minutes later. We played for over 2 hours and couldn't even make it halfway through level 1. This is a travesty. Ubisoft. You've done it again. You couldn't possibly make a game without ruining something, now could ya?
This is a beat 'em up, and beat 'em ups are so much better with friends. So here's what I recommend if you want to play this game with your buddies. Download Parsec. This isn't sponsored, but I just love this service. Only one person has to own the game, and your friends can connect in and play with you. In my Discord server, we play online games all the time in Parsec, and it works quite well. Give it a shot. Despite that flaw, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, is fantastic. The fact that it even got re-released at all is a miracle. I love this game, and the re-release is going to create a whole new generation of fans. It was a joy being able to talk about this game today, and I am absolutely ecstatic about the physical release. Yeah, I got the fan bundle. I know where my priorities are at. We live in a world where Scott Pilgrim is getting a physical release. If you told that to anybody a year ago, they would have told you to keep your expectations lower. This game was a prime example of the cons of digital gaming, and now that it's preserved officially, it's nothing short of magical. Last year, I did my part in trying to preserve the game, and now I've decided to take that zip file down. Please, if you used my tutorial, go out and buy it. There is so much to love about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and it should be appreciated and preserved for video game generations to come. It's the end of the video, and you know what that means. Updates. To keep content coming and to stay relevant, I am going to start uploading smaller videos in between major 20 to 30 minute episodes. These shorts are going to be around 5 to 10 minutes and could be standard showcase/reviews on arcade games or imports that I find interesting, maybe topics in the gaming world that don't fit into a half an hour, or even some videos about game collecting. Bottom line is, starting this year, I want to create more content for you and keep things fresh around here. I love making videos, and I read all the comments, so let me know what you think. And to all the new viewers of this channel, Thank you for clicking on this video. I hope you enjoy my backlog of videos, and I appreciate the time you spent on my channel. It's been a real one. See you soon.